So speaking of direct on Skype, we have Ramsey Touchberry joining us. Ramsey is a politics and breaking news writer for Newsweek. He recently wrote an article on comments made by John Brennan, the former CIA director, about the possibility of Russia recording President Trump and Putin's meeting. Welcome, Ramsey.
Good morning,
Hi, Ramsey.
guys.
Can you tell us about Brennan's assessment?
Yeah, so he issued a pretty scathing rebuke. What he said earlier this week was that he would find it unbelievable if they didn't record it in some manner. And he said that whatever Mr. Trump said in that meeting with Mr. Putin is most likely memorialized on Russian tape and would be used against him in the future. Now, he isn't the only intelligence official that said something like this. The Trump administration's own Director of National Intelligence, Dan Coats, actually said the same thing this week, is that it's possible the meeting was recorded. Now, why this matters is because, according to intelligence officials, is because they don't know what was discussed in that meeting. The only other Americans in the room besides the president was his interpreter. So it's caused, throughout the week, various intelligence officials to question what exactly was said, what was talked about, what was agreed upon, especially considering now the president has invited Putin back for a second summit later in the fall. So, in order to go into that in the future, I'm sure they will be consulting with the president, pressing him further on what exactly was discussed.
But Ramsey, so some people have thrown around the word blackmail about what he may or may not have said. But I mean, to me, well, first of all, this is all unfounded speculation about what may or may not have been said. But then secondly, what could he have actually said that is actually blackmail worthy? I don't get it.
So it is not proven that it was recorded, of course. I think the way that the administration could clear a lot of this up is by releasing some sort of transcript and releasing more detailed notes. We heard the president later this week come out and say, well, he did press Russia on election meddling, but yet the day of their international press conference, Trump standing beside Putin, refused to acknowledge and confront him about it. So, in order to clear a lot of this up, the White House could release further transcripts on it, could release further details about it.
Yeah, and we have DNI Coats, Director of National Intelligence, Dan Coats, still saying he has no idea what was said during this meeting. This is America's top intelligence official saying, I have no idea what our president discussed with a former KGB spy master. In this context, some members of Congress are calling for the only other American in the room, Marina Gross, who is a translator, to be brought before Congress to testify about what was said. Can you tell us a little bit about that? Do you think that there's any validity to these calls?
Yeah, so, there appears to be, considering his own intelligence officials are very wary of what was said. That would leave people to believe that she probably should be questioned if the White House won't release any further information about it. Now, Democrats tried to put forward that motion later this week, and it was shot down by Republicans in the Senate. So, whether or not that's going to actually come to fruition is yet to be seen.
And Ramsey, as far as what Brennan said, he said that the president committed treason, which I think is an incredibly inflammatory word to use. And in some respects, wouldn't you say that's almost playing into Putin's hands to say that to have an intelligence official or former intelligence official in the United States so publicly berating his own president, isn't that exactly what Putin wants? And isn't he smiling by that?
So Brennan did issue a pretty scathing tweet where he did say he called the president, treasonous, and it came to high crimes and misdemeanors. I think what Putin is more happy with is the fact that on an international stage, the president didn't directly confront him about election meddling. I think that would be much better for Putin's overall goal, rather than to have his intelligence officials go against him. Obviously, it helps in the fact that they're going against the president, and it seems to be the president is now siding with Putin over his own intelligence officials. Surely the whole mess and debacle and disagreements between the intelligence community and Trump certainly helps Putin. That's not going to hurt him.
Politically, how risky is it for the Trump administration to be inviting Putin back to Washington for a second summit, and also potentially very close to the midterms?
I think it's really shocking considering what's happened over the past week, the bipartisan backlash from lawmakers and how it's played out with people in the conservative side of the spectrum. And like you said, he's having this second meeting, during the midterm elections. Politically speaking, it's potentially very risky. But then again, we've seen polls where, the Republican Party supports his meeting with Putin and supports the outcome. So among his base, it's probably not too risky. Among the general public, it could certainly hurt some Republicans in some swing districts, I'm sure.
Right. Well, and I think that's really heading into the midterms. Where in the list of priorities do you think this will be on voters' minds? I mean, typically it's the economy, and the economy's roaring.
This is true, but in terms, I saw a poll, I think it was within the past week, that showed that a lot of Americans now view Russia, not ISIS, not terrorism, as America's top enemy. So you're correct that people who need to put food on the table are probably not reading up on foreign policy every single morning and are not concerning themselves with this as much as the economy and jobs and where's my next paycheck going to come from. But Americans are shifting in their views on Russia. I think compared to even a year ago, more Americans seem to view Russia in a very negative light.
Well, I think Mitt Romney would agree. He was very prescient when he called out about that and was mocked by the former president on the debate stage. So it's really, as hypocrisy is a universal sin in politics. We all fall short of the glory of God. We're all making mistakes, and I think that's why we have the show where we can talk about it all. Like we let it all out, and I think that's what's missing in this country, of people coming together, expressing opposing viewpoints, but listening. And Ramsey, we appreciate your perspective this morning.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me, guys.